The Bullet Time podcast is graciously supported by Eric Hamilton Schneider, Valerie B, VG, and the Hot Cider support tier. If you'd like to help with the production of episodes and gain access to extra content, consider supporting over at patreon.com/hot cider. That's HOTCYDER. Following the end of the Second World War, the world was split in two, East and West. So goes the first words of Hideo Kojima's Metal Gear Solid 3, one of the most endearing pieces of fiction about the Cold War. Named so due to the fact that the United States and USSR never formally declared war on each other, the Cold War wouldn't be fought on the battlefields of old, but instead in the hearts and minds of the people. Whether it was the superliminal screeds of Wisconsin's own Senator Joseph McCartney and his war on communist sympathizers, to the insidious nature of Red Panic in TV, film, and other media at the time. The explosive popularity of science fiction in the 1950s, for example, was propelled by the Cold War. Space movies rocketed as NASA raced to put a man on the moon before the Reds, whilst US anxieties regarding their neighbours being potential sympathizers were reflected in alien invasion movies. Long after the Berlin Wall has come down, the Cold War's indelible mark on popular culture remains, due to so many of our science fiction tropes finding their origins in this time period. Ironically, although many sci-fi stories strive to be speculative, they are very much rooted to the anxieties of the past. For their final original game so far, Raven Software would tackle this schism head-on. Not only would this title take place during our modern era, it would have brief excursions to our Cold War past, where every anxiety the US had about Russia's science fiction superiority would instead be science fact. Ironically, the game would also feel caught between two time periods, a reflection on Raven's curious and creative past, but in the templates of their future Call of Duty titles. On this episode of Bullet Time, we close out our first mini-series with Raven Software's 2010 game, Singularity.
What if American propaganda but in Russian?
Yeah, what if the R's and E's are backwards?
Yeah, exactly. That's all it takes. Then you know it's Russian.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Are we ready to rock and roll?
Yeah. I mean, I threw the recording on just to because we were saying good stuff, and I wanted to.
We weren't saying
very good stuff. To put it to posterity. So yeah, we're rolling. So.
No problem at all. I will get into things then, which is... Hello, and welcome to Bullet Time, the video game podcast that analyses the shooters that miss their mark. I am James. Joining me as guest host, once again, on this mini-series is the Nikolai Demichev of video game literature himself, Kevin from PixelLit.
Hello there.
Hello. And joining us as special guest on this is the... Well, he's got so many things to his name, but you would probably know him best as the producer of the No Clip podcast. And that is, friend of the show, Jesse Guarascia. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You got it great. Who told you?
Kevin.
Figured. No one ever gets that right first try. That was beautiful. I loved it. Yes, hello, or should I say, privyet? Yeah. Oh, you have done it twice. That's right. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to make sure, because I was like, I don't want to get this wrong. Is it Garcia? And he was like, no, it's not Garcia. No, you have to say it. It's like, okay, thank God.
The writer is going to be so mad.
Yeah, I know.
No, that was well done.
It's got a nice Italian flavor to it. You know, it's got some It's got that Olive Garden seasoning right on there. So.
Yeah, it comes with breadsticks.
Certainly nicer than my harsh Scottish surname of
Docherty.
I love it.
Docherty. Yeah. But folks, we made it. we've come to the end of the line, as Boyz II Men famously sung. They're from Philadelphia.
They are from Philadelphia. That's my hometown. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to get some Philly representation in here before the end of the series. I don't think we talk about Philadelphia at any other point in the podcast. If we do, feel free to leave a comment below and correct us on that. But yeah, we are at the end of this adventure. So this series is, as you're likely well aware, That's So Raven, where we are talking about the games of Madison, Wisconsin-based developer Raven Software. And although they still exist as a developer today, this is the last original IP that they came up with. And I would say the last game that isn't part of the Call of Duty soup, really.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of an interesting game to go out on because it almost feels a bit like a halfway... It feels like the fulcrum point between what Raven used to be and... well, what they are now, which is part of the FPS factory.
Yeah.
Well, the Call of Duty factory, I suppose. But I guess we can get into that a little bit more with the game that we're talking about today, which is 2010's Singularity. So, I guess initially, what are our thoughts? What do we think of... what's I don't know, what's the general vibe that we got on Singularity just off the dome?
So off the dome, I mean, Singularity it's 100%. You come in and it's got them sweet BioShock vibes, right down to you're on a flying vehicle that crashes.
Oh yeah, that's right. I didn't even notice that.
It's like you're on a flying vehicle.
You're on a piece of flying transport.
It crashes.
Oh my god!
You get some audio logs shoved in your face, and then there's a brass statue that could basically could nearly have the "No gods or kings, only men" banner hanging above it when you enter this one room. So the inspiration is clear. So I would say initial element of off the dome reaction to Singularity is BioShock.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair, man. That's the vibe I got right away playing it now. When I played it before, I played this right after launch, maybe a year or two after, and I felt exactly the same way. Wow. I mean, I was a huge BioShock fan when it came out. I played the demo 900 times, played the actual game 900 times, played this, and I was like, I mean, I played this before, I feel like, a lot, most of it. But I do really like this. I like this game. If imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, this game has like 19 crushes. And they only like them a little bit. They only ever so slightly are into them. Like just, hey, can I get your number? And then they don't call them or text them. That's the kind of game we're playing here with Singularity. So, Half-Life, BioShocks, like 900 games going on here.
So I guess I'll ask them, what was your initial... How did you find out about... why did you play it, Jesse? How did you find out about it?
So, back in the day, there was this website called Game Trailers. Rest in peace. And they had, they had game trailers on it. Could you believe it? And there was one on there for this game, maybe. It was like an ARG promo trailer from this group called Mir 12. And they were talking about this island called Katorga 12, where there was this experiment going on. And you could learn more about it if you go to singularitygame.com. And I got so into that. That was the first ARG sort of thing that little kid me was doing, an ARG alternate reality game where they set up a bunch of things for you to click on, links to go to, websites to check out that have information that are like, this all really happened. This is real life. Please spend $60 on our game. And this was the first one for me. So I got really into it and I bought it and played it. It was over in 6 hours. I never touched the multiplayer and I haven't played it since. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I guess so. I guess when we asked you onto the podcast, though, and I suppose actually, I think I've kind of sped through things a little bit too much. You can tell me off about this later, Kevin. But Jesse, for people at home who don't know who you are, who have never heard of NoClip, Who are you and what are you working on, I suppose?
What do you do here?
Haven't heard of NoClip.
What?
Yeah, what do you do? Yeah.
What are you doing here? Why are you on this podcast?
She doesn't even go here.
Funnily enough, Kevin, the reason he's on the podcast is that I found a diary from the 1950s that said that we need to have Jesse.
It all
need
circles
Jesse
back
on the
around.
pod.
You know, this is a real time.
The funny thing is that
And
at the
you
end
wrote
of the podcast, I'm going to write that journal to remind me.
You're dying. You will be. You're
So
gonna
stupid.
write that in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to be wearing a cross of the Russian Orthodox Church, which was for some reason I was like when I was playing it, I was like, "Has she got an Orthodox? She got a Russian Orthodox crucifix?" And I was like, "Oh wow, interesting." Good
Why not?
detail to add,
Bold
folks.
choice, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out.
Sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, of course, yes. So I'm the Russian ambassador for NoClip. It's a video game documentary YouTube channel run by Danny O'Dwyer, and Jeremy Jane's the lead editor. Frank Howley's the capture director and community guy. And I am, like like James said, the podcast producer. So I put it all together, upload the videos, talk on it from time to time, host it from time to time, and I tend to just shout out indie games. I'm also working on stuff for them, including the developer breakdown series, where I'm putting together videos about game design and interviewing developers. There's one coming up soon on Neon White, which is cool if you care about that game and want to hear about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Neon White is that's a game too good for this
banger.
podcast.
Yeah, Neon
Never
White.
gonna talk about it.
Neon White is way too coherent.
I think it's also
Too coherent.
It's also too cool for this podcast. Like if we covered Neon White, like we'd have to wear suits and like, you know,
Yeah, you're right.
we'd have to do it from the Viper Room or something. Which is like, you know, hi, we're doing a special
Playing
episode
Evanescence in the
of
background.
Neon White today.
Oh gosh.
So I guess at NoClip, you kind of, I mean, you do cover kind of older stuff, and again, as you said, you kind of go more into the sort of developer histories and stuff. And I don't know, what's your kind of knowledge on like other Raven software stuff outside of Singularity?
Not a whole lot, honestly. I think I was aware of the fact that they had done Call of Duty pretty much from 4 onward,
Yeah.
right? Or past that, yeah. I was aware of that because I was big into Call of Duty when I was a kid who wasn't at roughly my age. You didn't have a choice. That's how you made friends. It's Fortnite today. They did work on X-Men Legends.
Yeah.
Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's about it, though. I don't know a whole lot about their history. Did you do any research?
Oh yeah, we got notes. Yeah, I've written some
hell
notes.
yeah.
We got
Mostly,
notes.
like,
We have an
on my
entire
arm. You can't quite see
series,
'em.
an entire list of episodes prior to this one that are.
That is true. Yeah, we've built a collage on the history of
A montage of Raven.
Oh, yeah.
You could say a montage, yeah. But yeah, this was kind of an interesting. Singularity kind of came out of a very interesting side because this is a year after Wolf 09, which both these games were kind of built in tandem in a weird way. I think probably one of the most interesting things about Singularity kind of almost shuttering the door on the end of an era for Raven Software. This is their first and so far only game built in the Unreal Engine.
Huh.
So that relationship that they had been building with id. So kind of Jesse, like the thing with Raven is that where they kind of came from was that they started off with this game called Black Crypt, which was, again, like all these guys in the 80s who went from, well, I really love D&D, but I want like a computer version of this. And so they took their own stab at it, and that was that. Caught the attention of id, especially John Romero kind of took Raven under his reign, despite the fact that he wasn't a Raven himself. But jokes that pay the bills, folks.
Good one.
And through that, they became very chummy with it, and they gave them basically the source code for the Wolf 3D engine, which went into making Shadowcaster, and then basically said to them, hey, you did a sterling job of this. We're working on this new version of the Wolf 3D engine, which we think is going to be a big deal. We want you there, like, not quite day one, but with this new engine that we're building to make something like Shadowcaster, so like a dark fantasy version of an FPS. That engine was the Doom engine, and the game that came afterwards was Heretic, which again, dark fantasy version of Doom. And so through that, they just build this really strong relationship. And like, as the Doom engine becomes id Tech 2 for Quake and stuff like that, they're kind of going alongside it as well. So you have Soldier of Fortune, which was like a heavily modified version of the Quake engine. And then they do Star Trek Elite Forces. They do Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy, the 2 Star Wars games, all the way up until Wolfenstein 2009, which was built on a super modified version of the Rage engine. Actually, no, was it? It was either a modified version of the Rage engine or a modified version of the Doom 3 engine.
Yeah,
I think it's something a little bit in between.
id Tech something. It's they all become renamed id Tech, number something.
And the original concept, the original prototype that they had built for Singularity was also meant to be the engine that they had done for Wolf 9. But because of the kind of ambitions that they had with the game, they quickly realized we kind of need the tools that Epic are building for this, which kind of led a little bit into why Singularity isn't quite the game that came out.
Right.
So it comes out in the year 2010. Kev, give us some hot facts about the year.
Hot facts about the year 2010. What's going on in the world when Singularity is released? Well, over on the box office, top movie, Toy Story 3 was the hot
film.
The hot movie.
Classic.
Over on the Billboard 100, Top 100, the number one song on the Billboard was Katy Perry's "California Girls."
Good song. Classic.
This is the California
song.
When
Girls
Singularity
era.
comes out.
Classic.
And in the news,
Right.
well, when Singularity comes out, the G20 meeting is happening in Toronto. The World Cup is being held in South Africa. And the Deepwater Horizon oil spill is about to be hit by a hurricane, making it so much worse. So that is the world that Singularity is birthed out to. That is what's going on.
Perfect conditions by the sentence of things.
Honestly.
That's what's going on in the world.
Jeez.
So
The South Africa World Cup, I remember it because... Did you ever watch footage of it? Because it
the
was
Vuvuzelas.
The Vuvuzelas, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's when they were hot, was 2010. Every jackass had a vuvuzela,
Yeah.
however you say it,
God.
up here, just banging them and yelling. Oh, yeah, love it. Uh-huh. It's just a Thursday, guys. There's no sports game on. Stop playing it.
It was great.
Get over yourself.
It was great. You would watch football matches and it would just sound like the stadiums are being attacked by killer bees.
yeah,
Just from the...
no, that was it. It was
God.
it was rough. It was rough. Yeah.
Yeah, these were rough times. You needed a game like Singularity to come in and kind of, break the ice a little
Really bring
bit.
the world together. Singularity. This is why it's called Singularity. Is it's a singular object for
We never
gaming.
I'm gonna
quick,
guess,
somebody
Kevin,
yes
you
and
did the
me.
same- God, I'm guessing
No,
you
you're
did
right.
the same as
You're
me,
right.
and you didn't bother looking up what the definition of a singularity was for this.
Singularity
'Cause I don't know.
isn't it it's a black hole, I think.
Yeah, basically.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds about right. Which is that fitting for this game? No. Well, I
Yes.
guess there
It's
is
a
an
black
event
hole
that
of
happens.
ideas and game design and just combining it all into one thing
There we
that
go,
you
yeah. When you
experience
think
on your
about it,
Xbox
yeah, all-
360.
All of video game design is
Yeah.
singularity. That's absolutely right.
Exactly. It's all
Yeah.
right here.
A point at
guess
which
there
a
is a
function
singularity,
takes
but-
an infinite value, especially in space-time, when matter is infinitely dense, as at
Wow.
the center of a black hole. Thank you, Google.
Thank you, Google.
Look at us.
Wow, coming in with a clutch. God. So, 2010, we have Raven Software. They put out Wolfenstein 9, which doesn't set the world on fire by any aspects. And they, for the past 2 years, have been working on a game which hasn't quite got a name yet. They do eventually reach Singularity with it. But the initial concept for it, in a weird way, is that they wanted to make something original because it had been some time with the studio and they had mostly been working on either licensed stuff like Star Wars or they had worked on like previously known quantities like Wolfenstein. And so the Brian and his brother, who headed up Raven Software, they basically kind of had this want for doing, something original and something sci-fi, which, apart from, I guess, the Star Wars and Star Trek stuff, isn't really something that they had never stepped into. They had done dark fantasy, they had done urban warfare with Soldier of Fortune, but this was going to be... You just laugh.
I just giggle anytime I think about Soldier of Fortune. You can continue.
Jesse, do you even know? Have you
no
seen
experience?
Soldier of Fortune?
Nope.
God,
John Mullins.
It is something.
So super self-serious then, yeah?
Oh, kind of.
It's about a
basically
contractor or slash mercenary slash soldier of fortune named John Mullins, who, if he's a real dude, by the way,
he's a real guy.
Who has saved the world numerous times, and has his exploits immortalized into the video game Soldier of Fortune, in which the
beginning of the game is basically like, that's the big selling point with Soldier of Fortune, is that it had this system in it called the Ghoul system, where you could individually target enemies' limbs and blow them off in like realistic to like Quake 2 at the time detail. Right. But the first level of that game is you're going through the New York subway, and it's like an old 80s ultra right wing.
Yeah, it's Death
you're
Wish.
Just going through and just shooting gangs.
It's you might as well be playing Death Wish simulator. Charles Bronson rolling in there shooting some gang members.
It's not good.
It's not great.
It's not great. It's not great at all. Fortunately,
so
Singularity doesn't have that. Singularity is a little bit nicer. Well, I say a little bit nicer. I guess you could kind of... I'm not really sure what its politics are. I don't think it really has any politics.
I would say it's the first game I've ever played that really nails the no politics somehow by
yeah. Yeah, not developed by Ubisoft, shockingly.
Yeah, I
for
know,
having no politics. You really would think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the perfect description. It has no politics. It's like the most, despite being so upfront about what it's copying and like taking ideas from in terms of politics, it's like, this is not about anything. The Russians, they're fine. They got a cool aesthetic.
Right?
Look at
They got
the cartoon villains, yeah.
They got the backwards R's, They got the backwards R's, and they got
the backwards N's, they got the backwards Z's, they got all those going.
You have the brutalist architecture competing with the Art Deco style. So you have the Randian, BioShock Art Deco style, versus in Singularity you have the brutalists, Soviet communist style. Which are both very super strong aesthetics. Like, you cannot mistake those aesthetics for anything else, because they're right in your face. So that's the thing is Singularity is what if we took BioShock and just flipped it and made it communist, but made it cartoon communist. It's like Red Dawn, You ever see Red Dawn, the original, where it's like, oh, the commies are coming to take over the United States, but it's just like, it's nonsense, it's kind of like a nonsense villain. It's not, you could have called them the bads.
Yeah, it's like it's
literally,
like, it's like
right.
the enemies in like Commando. It's like, what part of South America are they from? All of it. Oh, okay, cool. All right, fair enough, I guess. Which I guess is interesting because, like the whole sort of impetus and the starting point with Singularity was just like, hey, Russian stuff is cool. We have this like old-fashioned Soviet-era bunker in Madison, Wisconsin as like kind of a landmark that you can go to. Why don't we use that as kind of a starting base? And then they kind of had the idea from that of, well, what if we made a game about time travel? And
that's where a lot of development issues started with Singularity. So before we started the podcast, Singularity in my mind, I thought was like, this is like if anybody asks what would you cover on Bullet Time, like what is the one game that like sums up this podcast more than anything, I would say it was probably Singularity, because incredibly ambitious what they wanted to do with it. But then the product that's released is absolutely fine. It's a solid 7, 8 out of 10 game, but didn't land with anybody. It didn't really, set the world on fire. And unfortunately,
No talk of a sequel.
It's well, funnily enough, there was a lot of GDC talks at the time where they were like, "Oh, are you working on a sequel?" And they were like, "We want to make sure that we get the first game absolutely right before we do anything." We just want to get that ironed out first.
It's developer code for like,
fair.
no, this is bad. This is not going to get a sequel.
No, we'll be lucky if we do anything other than Call of Duty after this.
They already have us working on the DLC for Black Ops. We're not working on a sequel for this. So they were working on this game for about 2 years, and this was being made by their... So the way that Raven was split up at the time is that they had a couple of main teams. One of them worked on Wolfenstein 9. You had your Marvel team, which we haven't really digged into this too much in Bullet Time because none of the Marvel stuff they made was FPS games. But at the time, they had come out with a couple of decent bangers. They had the X-Men Legends games, which became Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which were being made by Treyarch at this point. Yeah, really good games.
So good.
And they had done the tie-in to Wolverine Origins, which was a third-person action game, which, if this podcast goes on long enough, I would like to talk, because that is a game that literally punches above its weight in a really...
Hey, baby, we can talk about whatever you want. We can get into that.
We can talk about that if you want. Kevin, have you played that game?
Which one?
It's really good. X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Oh, no, but I have seen a version of the movie without any special effects.
Yeah, the bootleg one that everyone got from the corner store. Hell yeah, baby.
It is.
That's the one to watch.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those rare instances where the media tie-in is leagues ahead in both quality and entertainment value of the thing that it's based on. And, yeah, it's like this kind of really... Well, again, the film itself is like a PG-13 or something, but the game is like this hyper-violent third-person action game, and it's okay. It's like, it's not... It doesn't replace God of War. It doesn't, overdo it. But just, as a rental game, it's, fantastic. But
yeah, that's the perfect way to describe one of those games, is a rental game.
Yeah.
Which we don't do anymore, unfortunately, which is probably why they don't exist anymore.
No, and we don't have demo games either. Which, I was thinking about this in regards to Just Cause 2, which is, the perfect demo. The Just Cause 2 demo, the way that they structure it is that it's not the entire map, but it's, a pretty big chunk of it, but you only have 30 minutes. And it's, such a really... It's, the perfect restriction for that game, because Just Cause 2, again, really good checklist game, and they get better with that stuff as they go along. But having to do that in that, such a tight time limit, it's almost like... large-scale Tony Hawk Pro Skater. But about liberating a South Asian country with parachutes.
Which is really what Tony Hawk should have been about from the start.
Tony Hawk Cambodia Skater.
Oh, man.
You do go to Russia in Tony Hawk's Undergrounds. He doesn't liberate anything there. He could have stopped the Cold War. Tony Hawk,
he had to tear down that wall by hitting it 360.
Tony Hawk, tear down this wall, and he's going to do it.
Mr. Hawk,
he's going to kick flip McTwist those bricks out one by one.
Hell yeah,
Mr. Hawk!
Thank you, Reagan, for supporting
this. Do a face plant off this wall. Not enough games with Reagan in it. Shame that this game didn't have Reagan in it.
Reagan
he is in Black Ops.
Yeah,
Reagan appears.
He is in Black Ops Cold War though, which is made by Raven. So
Kevin's like, I think you're in the wrong spot here, man. We need less. Ronald Reagan.
Hold on, let me pull. Yeah, pull the eject. We're not yes-anding that.
Yeah. Ronald Reagan.
Let's talk about Ronald Reagan. No,
let me tell you about Ronald Reagan.
Oh shit! Here we go.
God,
this isn't PixelLit. Okay, sorry. You can
Yeah. Although I keep looking at the icon on top, and it's like, when are we going to go to the next chapter? What are we talking about? So they start working on this game, which is being made by one of the teams within Raven, and they're using the Unreal Engine for it because basically their entire concept of the game is built around the TMD, the time manipulation device, which is that's the unique selling point of Singularity, but maybe not to the extent that they had imagined, because the original concept was, you'll be able to age and de-age everything.
Yeah, that's bold.
They were,
that's a.
They were planning for red faction levels of like destructibility with this.
Did not get that
to the extent that it wouldn't run on the PS3. It barely ran on the 360, and they had to cut so much content out. And on the PC, it ran at like single-digit frame rates.
Oh boy!
The VP of Activision comes and sees the build of it and says, I'm going back to head office and we're cancelling this because you've missed your deadlines. This is spiraling out of budget. This ain't happening. A week later, they get a phone call and says, right, Singularity's back on.
What?
There is this fantastic Polygon article written by one of the developers of Singularity where he goes into this game that they had worked on for 2 years, wasn't going anywhere. Activision cancelled it and then uncancelled it. He doesn't give yeah, I know. It's like, I don't think I've heard of any other game that has gone through that kind of.
So, fun fact. All right. This is, the knowledge, I have it in the back of my head. XCOM, the original XCOM, was in production. And the publisher is like, we're canceling this. And they just ignore that. And they kept going.
Perfect.
It's something like they ignored the cancellation. The publisher got acquired. And then they're just like, oh, yeah, no, we were still going.
So what? It's like an executive just
like,
walks
you guys
in
are
and they're like, hey, you want to work on the game some more? And
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
We kept going.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, the guy just leaves the room, and the manager's just like, no, get back on your computers. We're finishing this. We're pretty near to finish.
So yeah, XCOM had a similar backstory to Singularity.
Okay.
God. So Singularity, they bring it back on the break. The guy in the Polygon article doesn't give a definitive answer to why that is. I have seen, though, that one of the reasons might have been that they didn't have enough Activision, yeah, I know. Activision didn't have enough games coming out in 2010. And so they were like, well, Singularity could fill a slot. And I guess it does come out in June, which is like, the summer's usually kind of like the doldrums. And like games usually don't come out during the summer anyways. And later in the year, they're going to have Black Ops, which is out in November. They have the 007 GoldenEye reboot that also comes out later in the year, as well as Bloodstone. But I guess maybe they were just kind of looking at their schedule and going, we need some more FPS games. Free FPS games in 1 year, that's not enough.
We need more.
Let's write that out to a nice 4. Yeah. They hand it back to Raven, who go, well, we're going to have to basically they hand it back to Raven and they go, you got 10 months to turn this around. So they give it to the team that do their Marvel stuff. So completely new head on it, completely different development staff on it. And basically they go, well, we got some interesting ideas here, but we're going to have to scale this back enormously. And it's kind of interesting that that's the case because the game that came out of it isn't bad. It doesn't feel like a game that went through an enormous retooling, if you know what. It feels like a game that is absolutely solid, but not like enormously ambitious. It's just like it is what it is. So the fact that like they had originally planned for this game to be like, oh, you'll be able to age everything like on the island, and this device will do all sorts of stuff. Like,
I think that's.
I don't know. You don't really feel it.
I think that's pretty amazing, and I think it's something that happens when you have basically like a second set of eyes come in and able to take a look at something and be like, all right, well, there's an okay game in here that we can ship like in like whenever this decision was made. We can ship this in 6 months if you get rid of X, Y, and Z, and you cut the running time of the game in half. Which I imagine is probably along the lines of what happened. You're like, just get rid of these levels. Get it.
So the interesting thing is that you were mentioning the Bioshock influence earlier. The audio logs were a time-saving measure. Originally, they had like planned out cutscenes and elaborate like Half-Life 2 style characters talking to each other.
They just got rid of all the other characters.
Yeah, basically.
I mean,
and the funny thing is that when they were originally doing production on the game back in like 2006, 2007, Bioshock was just like a twinkle in Ken Levine's eye. They didn't know what this looked like yet. And so a lot of their ideas, which ended up being quite Bioshock, like they've said, like, well, yeah, we'd originally planned for stuff to be like this. It's just that, 2K beat us to the punch and,
Interesting.
that is that.
It makes you wonder if there's some sort of myth of that sort of game design where it's like, is there something before Bioshock that was the Bioshock?
Yeah, System
to
Shock.
Bioshock. It was, I guess, System Shock, but like in terms, I'm talking about in terms of that specific.
Yeah, like
that specific like aesthetic and everything.
Graphic of like a giant stim pack needle that you pick up for health or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, maybe there was like, because this year, 2022, there's been like a ton of those kind of like Western Gothic horror kind of games.
Yeah.
Yeah, Evil West is
Weird
coming out
West.
soon. Weird West was earlier.
And
Hard
Hard
West
West
2
2,
just came out a month or two ago. So there's like a ton of that. Blood West is another one, I think. The name is a coincidence, but like the vibe and the feeling, it feels like, there's always media. Maybe it was, what was the Billboard top song? Maybe it was California Girls.
Yeah.
Inspired everyone
California
to just spin
Girls,
their games into being classic Art Deco inspired.
Oh, I mean, the music video is all about. I mean, it's,
maybe the answers in the other Billboard top. Like number 2 was OMG by Usher. Airplanes is number 3. Yep. 4 was Billionaire, and 5 was
Andrew Ryan, Billionaire, famously.
And 5 was Alejandro by Lady Gaga. So
there you go.
Airplanes is the song where. Isn't there like a meme online where it's like one of the ponies from My Little Pony and the bird from Regular Show, and they're like singing it to each other and they're crying, and it's like I don't know why when that's just what popped into my head with that. Maybe I'm pasting. Sorry, I wasn't listening. I was. You don't have to play cool if you know the.
I'm pasting it. I'm just pasting the song into the chat so you can listen to it in case you wanted to.
I think it's funny you went there and you didn't go, is that the song with the guy who's a rapper and also a flat earther?
He's a flat
earther. Yeah, B.O.B. famously is a flat earther.
Yeah.
He's a flat earther, isn't he?
Yes.
I think the only reason I remember that meme is that somebody did a CGI video of it and sent it to the lady who's the backing vocalist on it on Twitter. She just replied and said, "Guys, I don't know what this means." Question.
Haley Williams of Paramore.
Haley Williams, yeah.
the lady that did the backing track on Airplane.
That lady who did that nice lady. It's like some grandma in Wisconsin did the backing track, and she's like, I don't know what B.O.B. I just did the song.
I usually work at Raven Software, but they asked me to do the backing vocals on this.
QA at Raven Software. She led the union effort.
Jesus.
We'll get into the QA.
We'll talk about the game eventually. Promise.
Yeah. Let's talk about the game.
Let's talk about the game.
I like the game. Again, it's like it's a little bit Half-Life 2 because like every level is its own sort of unique set piece kind of thing. Like sometimes you do tower defense, sometimes you do like an escort thing. They go through all sorts of different, and it's cute. Like everything's really solid. Like nothing's exceptional, but nothing's bad. Like it's just really well done. Like all the way throughout, which I know is such a hard thing to try and convey on a podcast. Just being like, yeah, it's really good, but
yeah.
I think of the games of its time, it's not like it isn't very buggy. Like just for clarification,
it still works on PC.
Yeah, I played the PC version from Steam, and
you could fire that PC version up. You can set it to 4K and go to town. You know,
It
see all the
works on my
disgusting
ultra wide.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Just boasting about my ultra wide on the,
right.
Yeah, no biggie. My 21:9. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jesse,
no
you're the
biggie.
guest of honor, though, so I'll let you go next. Hit us with your Singularity hot takes. Hit us with the
please.
Singe
Thank you.
us.
Yeah. Like, sure. I don't like that, but sure. So I think I agree with you, James, that this is a great game that is also not great all the time. Like it is full of little flourishes of genius. There's moments, especially early on when you first get the TMD, the kind of like main mechanic of the game, where they're showing you how it works and you're like, oh, that's really cool. It's just, that's as far as they go.
Yeah.
Is just those really cool introductory things. Like you get a box and you learn you can transform a box into a crumpled up box.
Yeah.
And then you can put it under a door and then turn it back into a regular box and lift the door. And you're like, wow, that's really smart. And then they do that 3 times. And that's like the extent of that entire mechanic. That's as far as that
This is
mechanic
clever,
goes.
right?
And you're like,
This is
And
this
it's
is
like,
so clever, right, guys?
you can
like
kind of
this?
see like the
enjoying
extra step that they could have taken, which is like, okay, we've now shown you how to use this mechanic in a safe environment. Hey, maybe you could use this for cover, or maybe like, whatever. You could use this during a firefight.
which
The
they try to
TMD
do.
Yeah, you kind
Sort
of.
of.
I mean, you kind of use the TNT just to make people load. It's more like kind of like a.
But there is like those barricades, like
yeah,
there's
yeah,
a moment
yeah,
where
yeah.
you can
destroy and then
rebuild
bring back,
barricades,
Yeah, I suppose that's true. But I
that's just-
I only ever used it just to make people load. It was just
No,
a
exactly,
decent
yeah.
one-hit kill.
Yeah,
So-
which is actually just one of the more terrifying things. Let's pause for a moment and talk about how terrifying this thing is when in the context of killing people. I mean,
the old
the old beam, where it's like the person is screaming and they don't know what's happening to themselves, and it's like the scene at the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and you just grab the wrong grail and you're just splashing water on everybody. You're just going, and like, so these people are looking at their hands, and then they're skelly men, and then they're
Yeah,
ash.
they're not even, they're just, yeah. And
Here's the
they're dust.
thing, though. Here's where they missed a trick. They should have done the opposite, and you could have turned people
Babies,
into babies.
Yes.
babyalities.
I thought that's what they were going for with all the trailers. I was like, oh yeah, I could turn them into dust, or I could turn them into a little Benjamin Button boy. And just throw them around. Let me shoot the Benjamin Button baby. Let me shoot him. That's what video games are all about.
Like a little, and it's totally
don't know
self-aware
what-
though. That's the thing. It's like,
Yeah, it knows what's going on, but all it can do is goo goo gaga.
I just
That's
had the
it.
stupidest idea, which is that you turn them into a baby, and somehow the gun also becomes like a baby, like it turns into like
Fisher
a
Price.
like a Beretta. It
Like a
turns
Fisher
into a
Price
Kruger,
gun, yeah.
like a Luger or something. Just get a really tiny.
My baby's first Luger.
Yeah, it just turns into a Fisher Price plastic.
Yeah, yeah.
gun. And their uniform, they get like a little baby's
little baby
uniform
version of
as
the
well.
uniform.
Yeah, a little baby
So
uniform.
cute.
Baby.
And you just like one of the things you can do is you can just keep collecting them all and bringing them to like a daycare that you set up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh. And you get the Catherine, the game's Alex Vance, to watch them. It'll be
Oh,
great. She can give you
yeah.
updates over the radio.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
she goes
Singularity
back,
too.
she goes
If
back
Raven
in
Software
time-
needs some ideas.
She goes back in time to the 1950s, so she needs something to do.
She does.
Being
That's
a
right,
midwife,
she does.
that'll waste some
Yeah.
time. As she gets better. God, I know.
So
The plot of this game's there's not really much of a plot. The plot is
It exists.
you get called onto a Russian. You're best friends with Nolan North. You're on the helicopter
Oh, yeah.
with him. Yeah, it's got old Nolan North. You're on the helicopter
right.
with him. Hey, something weird's happening on this island. Go investigate it. You investigate it. Something weird is happening on the island. And then you keep getting pulled back and forth into time. You save somebody that you're not meant to.
you shouldn't have saved that
funnily
guy.
enough. No,
Yeah,
shouldn't have saved that guy.
Shouldn't have shaved him either. You're right.
You shouldn't have shaved him. Yeah, exactly right. It seemed like a good idea at the time, though. This Nikolai Dimitrov, he's just a nerd. He's a
Look at
scientist.
this,
What's
look at
he
this
gonna
science nerd. Ah, Hitler.
do?
Yeah.
Go back into the future.
Whoops, we made Russian science
We've
Hitler.
made-
Shouldn't have saved him.
We've made double Stalin. Worse than Stalin.
Double
We
Stalin.
made double Stalin.
He's so much worse than Stalin. They took down Stalin's statues and put up this guy. This guy is
He's cool. He just wants to go to war. He just wants to. I mean, what's he fighting for? Do you believe in like communism? No.
There's absolutely no reference to communism.
No, there's no communism.
In this game.
They say comrade. That's it.
And it's funny because you mentioned this before we start the call, which is like, it has all this Russian propaganda in it, but it's in the style of like American Disney propaganda, but just with like a goofy Russian accent over it. It's so like...
It's so funny.
And again, I guess maybe that's... I don't know whether that's kind of like a Raven staple in regards to... Well, again, they did Wolf 49, which is like... Yeah, it's about the Nazis, but it's not really about the Nazis.
Yeah.
Like,
it's aesthetically about the Nazis.
They're your classic cartoon villain of history, but then obviously you have the newer Wolfenstein games that then go the extra
mile and actually acknowledge that, oh shit,
let's actually dig into
talk
the
about
ideology
fascism.
of these
But they
guys.
are still kind of cartoony, though.
Oh, of course,
right? I mean, the guy's name's Death's Head, right?
What's
I mean,
nickname?
I know, but come on.
It's more after the moth more than being spooky.
Listen, if you have the opportunity to have Adolf Hitler shoot Ronald Reagan in the face in your video game, you take it. You should
do it. Yes, you're right.
We're back to Reagan again, folks.
Back
you
to
didn't
Reagan.
want to talk about it, but we circle all the way
cast.
back.
Wolfenstein 2 spoilers. Anyway.
A game we're not covering on the podcast.
A game we're not.
It's
too good of a game to cover on the podcast.
Too good. Yeah.
Not as good as the New Order, but better than a game that should be on both. So unlike Singularity, which is what we are talking about.
So
Singularity's cool.
Singularity.
It has a gun where you can.
The one thing I want to say is TMD, which is the initials for the thing, is also the name of a problem I have with my jaw.
Okay.
So you have there's a thing you have here. It's called the TM joint, the temporomandibular joint, and when you have an issue with it, it's called TMD, temporomandibular disorder. Basically, there's like a ligament issue right here, and your jawbone can get all like popped out and stuff like that. Anyway. A lot of musicians, wind players, have issues with TMD. But yeah, so anytime it said TMD, I was like, "That's okay. I guess we're calling it that."
Thanks for reminding me, guys.
Gee whiz. It's a lot, Raven. Come on.
Thanks, Raven.
Does that do anything to like? Is there anything that happens with that? You can't open your jaw.
It just pops and it hurts.
Oh, it just
okay.
Like.
Originally,
also when like the dentist is like, okay, open wide, and you try to like, if I try to open my mouth too wide, it'll just like, instead of like going and stopping, it does this thing where it's like pop, pop. and the dentist is like, I told you to just blah, blah. I was like, I can't, there's a thing.
That is so neat. See, that should have been the power in this game. That you just mess with people's jaws.
That was one of the things they planned, honestly, had to cut it for time, unfortunately.
Jaws.
Unreal Engine 3 couldn't do Jaws popping out of place.
Do jaw physics. Yeah, that wasn't in there.
Jaws and Singularity. And not the shark. I'm talking about the James Bond villain, Jaws.
Right.
Oh, yes. Big guy with metal teeth.
Yeah, huge guy.
The enemies in Singularity, they're okay. You have your... You have your usual guys.
Your dude.
You got your
most
grunts.
of your enemy is a dude with a gun.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what? This will be stupid to say. I was pleasantly surprised when soldiers with guns turned up because I thought the entire game was going to be.
That's true.
Guys.
We did start the game out with the Monster Boys, the tall, lanky Monster Boys, and they went away for a long time in the running time, and then it was guy with gun as the main villain for most of the time.
And then you get your zombies back, but they're like zombies that phase in and out of reality, and you have to use these. I don't know. They're a bit annoying to deal with though, because it's like there's like only one solution to deal with them, which is press a button to make sure that they phase into our reality, and then just shoot them.
Which is the classic BioShock. You got to zap your enemy before you hit him with the thing, right? So maybe they're trying to draw to that. Yeah. Although I do, you're right to say that getting the soldiers in was kind of like refreshing almost to have a different enemy that could actually fight you and not just run at you, swipe and run away. But I do also wonder on the other end of that, is this like, was that a budget thing where they were like, we have models and AI for these soldiers already. We're not going to bother making another zombie. Just put a soldier in the game. and just do that.
You're probably absolutely right, yeah, because, I mean, yeah, they could just use the main character model and just put a helmet on it, which is what all the guys look like.
Exactly,
So,
The my favorite thing to do with the TMD, aside from the aging thing, was where you hit them once with the aging ray and then hit them again and they turn into a horribly mutated like slime monster or something, and they would just start attacking everything around them. I was like, that is some Cronenberg level body horror shit right there that you do not expect the game to get to. Like, we're like, okay, we're doing some weird time shenanigans. We got some light monsters, you know. There's some they're monsters that are like, okay, whatever. But then you're like, oh, I can use time to like mutate people into fucking blobby type creatures.
You can get really mean with enemies in this game. Like, there's the level where they introduce the liquid nitrogen. You just freeze guys.
Just freeze them. Yep.
Yeah, just freeze them and then use your melee to
Shatter
like
'em.
break them into a million pieces.
Yeah.
Why not?
I think we'd be remiss. I think people would be upset if we don't mention the gun where you steer the bullets.
Oh,
Folks, let's make some
Was this
time
the
for
first game
gun.
to do the Seeker? Was this that kind of thing?
Yeah, basically
Really?
it's their version of the Redeemer from Unreal Tournament, but
Okay.
it's a cool weapon. Folks, if you've never played Singularity, basically you shoot a bullet and then the camera follows the bullet like kind of from a first-person perspective as you can steer the bullet through like slow time. Just get easy headshots.
And it's an
stuff.
exploding bullet. It's
Oh,
great.
yeah.
great.
I love it. It's great. There's no other way to describe it. It's the perfect weapon because they don't let you keep it. Like most of the other guns in the game, you pick it up, you're like, cool. A chain. I could just bring a chain gun with me wherever I go. But this one, they're like, no.
This one
is
is
too
special.
cool. You can't have this all the time. This is a
Again,
very important gun.
It fits nicely with the whole Half-Life 2 thing. Like, they don't give you... If they gave you the weapon all the time, you would just, like... You'd just be a turret. You would just stand still and just use the... You'd be like... what's the Corn video where the bullet keeps traveling?
The corn video,
Kevin, you should
with the
know.
bullet.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I don't.
Yeah, there's a Corn video. I think it's Freaking Unleash, where it's like... they just follow the bullet as it goes on a little adventure. Basically, the entire
enough of
game
a
would
Corn
turn into
expert.
that,
Yeah,
where you
it
just
is
play
Freak
as a
on a Leash.
bullet. Yeah, you just play as a bullet as you just go around hitting people in the forehead. But that wouldn't be a very fun game. But as you said, they take it away from you. You have to go and use your other weapons, which plays weirdly with the fact that it does have a weapon upgrade system in it, which I don't know if that totally like sticks the landing, but it was it was a game of 2010. It needed to have like a weapon upgrade system in it.
Yeah, it needed to it needed to jam that in there, whether it fit or not. It was 2010.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody was getting down to California Girls by Katy Perry.
But if any game was going to have an upgrade system, I feel like this is the right one to do it. Because having a weapon upgrade system, whatever, you have more ammo, you could shoot faster, your gun has more or less recoil. But BioShock does the same kind of thing, and I know we keep going back to that, but it's the perfect comparison where like you add stuff on and it like actually changes your weapon.
Oh yeah.
This seems like the perfect game to do that. You literally have an element that changes time.
Yeah.
I think that
where was that?
I think it's one of those things where had the upgrade system been focused solely on upgrading the TMD device throughout the game, because you get planned like plot upgrades to the TMD, like, oh, you need this upgrade on the TMD to go forward, right? But if there was some other like upgrade pathing for just the TMD, so you can have a certain build with it, be like, oh no, I like to like stop time, or I like to make people into babies. Like that's
Totally.
That
I want to build the baby class. I want to build the web class.
baby class. What's your main, bro, in Singularity? Baby class.
I mean, are you really playing Singularity unless you go the baby route?
Right, of course. That's the canon route, actually.
That's the canon route, yeah.
People don't know this, and you sometimes have to use a Game Shark to unlock this ending of Singularity. But if you go the baby route, it ends with a baby Stalin at the end, and he gets to grow up again in.
It's a shame they didn't go that
the
far,
1960s.
considering Soldier of Fortune had the audacity to put Saddam Hussein in the game, even though he has absolutely zero bearing on the plot. Saddam is in the game. I'm surprised they didn't go the extra step of it. Well, I suppose in Wolfenstein Hitler wasn't in it, but at that point, Hitler died in Wolfenstein 3D.
If you're gonna do it, just do it. Don't.
Yeah, why wasn't Stalin in Singularity?
Don't fuck around.
Just turned up,
Or Khrushchev. I think actually it would have been Khrushchev given the time.
Oh yeah, it would have been Khrushchev.
Period. But whatever. One of the
just put someone in there. Put a famous Russian person in there.
One of those, Khrushchev with the
famous. They just put Novikov in there. It's like, why am I here?
Dostoevsky is there writing.
Yeah. Hello, are you the person I'm waiting for? And you're like, oh, what are you writing a book?
You're writing a book?
What's going on?
Hey, do you know how to use a gun? I need help.
Why are you writing in English? Why is everyone in this game on this Russian island writing in English?
Oh yeah, that is a fair point. Why does everybody not only speak English, but why do they speak English with a cartoon Russian accent?
Yeah. It's funny too. There's a bit I think one of the later cutscenes near the end of the game where, up to that point you're like, why would you signpost stuff in English? That seems dumb, right? But then there's a newspaper they show that says English edition at the top of the newspaper in this cutscene. Cutscene in quotes. It's just a bunch of pictures. And below, the text of the articles is just random letters. It's just like JGHK LMNNNNNJK, and then the headline is a sentence. You're like, just blur the text. Why is it so clear?
It's like when you in the original Punch Out, every time you beat one. It's like Little Mackey's champ, but then it's just like random letters from the article.
My favorite is in the newer Resident Evil games made in the RE engine, where they do the classic RE thing of they have the newspaper behind the picture with the text on top. But they'll just take paper from anywhere. And so on one of them, it's just Autodesk Maya instructions written in Japanese. And so I'm just looking at it. It's like, I learned how to use this in university. Oh, yeah, let's see how to set up a new scene and put a cube in it.
Since we're talking about the notes and the quotes and the writing in this game, can we talk a little bit about the notes? You guys have a note
go
that
ahead.
you enjoyed?
Is there a note that I enjoyed?
Yeah, one that you remember at all? I want to find out if I'm the only one that saw this.
What pops into your head?
So there's a note in a locker. At this point in the game, it's like the last third of it. You're not really doing anything at this point. And this is to date the game so that you to put you in the year 2010 when you're playing it, you read this note and it goes, "My neighbor, he has painted my assholes. I get a bear made from a fur. He must get a bear made from a fur. I get a can of a meat. He must get a can of a meat. I get a E99 Technologies. He cannot afford. Great success." There's a fucking Borat joke. There's a fucking Borat joke in this game. And it's one of the last notes that you read before you go to the final sequence of labs that you run between. I lost my goddamn mind reading that note. I was like, there's no way they did that.
I mean, the game does have, I didn't get that far in this new playthrough, but right towards the end, there's a Lost reference.
There's
Lost
you
reference.
go down a tunnel. Yeah, there is a reference to, hey folks, you remember the TV series Lost? But yeah, there is, on the final level, you go down a corridor once you upgraded the TMD, and there's a big wedge in a wheel. And apparently that's a reference to either season 3 or 4 or Lost, where they have exactly the same thing. To stop a wheel from turning, they put a big wedge in it. It's like,
Interesting.
Okay.
Much like Lost.
I love those little things,
Very 2010.
Yeah,
makes
it's a nice reflection of
perfect little time capsule,
Yeah, it reminds you of the people who make these games. They like
people.
all the stuff that you do, and it's better than some in the old id games where you have what's the fish? It's called the dumb fish or whatever it's called. Whereas this old FPS calling card Duke Nukem 3D has it. Doom Eternal has it as well, where it's this big, ugly green fish with buck teeth, which was an enemy in one of the original Commander Keen games. And they put it as a placeholder in Wolfenstein 3D, and it just became this, hey, if you know... It's 0451.
Oh, dope.
If you put it in your game, it's we know who you're...
Dope fish.
The dope fish.
Yeah. It's a green fish with buck teeth. It's
don't believe the Dopefish is in Singularity. They're not.
No. That is real boomer humor right there. Like,
oh yeah.
like I know the id guys are Gen Xers, but like they drew a green fish with buck teeth and called it the Dopefish and thought it was the funniest fucking thing that they had ever made. That has like that.
Into a Dopefish,
I'm sorry.
Funny shit I've ever
I'm sorry.
seen.
That's Tom Hall written all over it. That I just like that. It radiates Tom Hall energy. Like
we need to do. What was the game that he did for Ironstorm? Aeronox. I'll have to do that. Although that's more of an
Arcanauts?
RPG, though, isn't it? Yeah. So basically, it's Ion Storm, like
Rise of the
was
Triad.
John Romero. No, it wasn't.
No, it's not that one.
I mean, he worked on Rise of the Triads, Tom Hall, but it was Tom Hall and Romero went to Ion Storm, and basically there were going to be free games that were going to be like their calling card. Deus Ex,
Daikatana.
there's a game Aeronox.
Oh,
and
Anachronox.
Anachronox, yeah.
Anachronox, that's it. And Daikatana. And pretty much only one of those games has gone on to be like a defining classic of the era.
Yeah, Daikatana.
And the other two. Of course,
I was like, there's no way you say Rise of the Triad. There's no way.
Oh god, Rise of the Triad.
Well, Rise of the Triad was actually the plot. Okay, so if I recall correctly, the backstory that Tom Hall wrote for Doom was what Rise of the Triad was. Like he wrote all of this plot, and Carmack was like, I'm John Carmack and I'm an asshole. Get rid of it. And
Carmack's really interesting with that because he did the same thing with Heretic. Originally, it was going to be more involved and have all these RPG elements and be like D&D. And then he just looked at them and said, just make it Doom, but dark fantasy. He just said, streamline it all.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, you're John Carmack, so I guess we will.
Yeah, whatever
you say, dude.
Yeah. The guy who famously said that games with stories in them is like story and porn. You don't need it.
Yeah, I don't know. Carmack has not aged well in terms of like
He's fucking
being a dude that people
Meta
should
VR
necessarily
now,
listen to.
Yeah.
Like,
well, actually, no.
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
think
he is
he's
on Meta now. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's working on that. I mean, he was the guy who went on Rogan and basically said like, you're never going to have a private island. You're never going to have like a Ferrari, but we can fake this stuff well enough in VR that you could have it there. And that's probably where we're going to go. People won't be able to have houses and stuff, but you can have a house in VR. It's like, cool, great.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
He comes at things from a real weird perspective, and not sure I always dig it. And you know, I've learned to appreciate John Romero more as time has gone by.
Oh yeah, Romero's great.
So cool. Great guy.
Romero, if it wasn't for Romero, Raven Software, we wouldn't have got to Singularity with him.
That's
he took
true.
a chance on
This is true.
on Shadowcaster and Hexen and Heretic.
And if anyone is looking for more information about the early days of Raven and id and kind of their crossover, it can be read about in the book Masters of Doom.
It's a really good
They
book.
have there's an entire, because there was a time where id had moved to Wisconsin. For whatever reason, they decided to move the offices to Wisconsin, and that's where they met the Raven Software guys. They literally met them in person, and they were like, "Oh shit, we're working on similar stuff." And then they started sharing a lot of things. It did not last long in Wisconsin. They moved to Texas right quick, but they kept they kept the relationship with Raven. But yeah, Masters of Doom.
What a fruitful relationship it was, and it doesn't seem like hard feelings that they used Unreal Engine 3 on Singularity.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, all the COD games are based on heavily modified, Quake-free engine stuff anyways, which I think is just super bizarre that, like, all the stuff that they built on top of Call of Duty, like ray tracing or whatever, still at the core of it is like...
Yeah.
Oh, is that right? It's still on the Quake engine, on Quake 3.
Yeah, it's still Quake-free.
Wow. That's
really
wild.
impressive.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, right?
The plot of Singularity, then, it's okay.
Sure.
The ending is maybe the most interesting thing about that game, I guess. Just in the fact that there's more than one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What endings did we go for first time, I guess? What did he do? Did we
Did
just do
anyone
the same
not
engine
shoot
that
the Russian
everybody else
man?
does?
Yeah, how are you not going to shoot the bad Russian guy? How are you not going to shoot Demichev?
Somehow I shot both of them the first time I played the game.
What?
You can shoot both of them.
Yeah.
That's another
ending.
ending?
Is you
Yeah.
kill both of them. So
Oh, shit.
basically, you kill both of them and you just walk off into the sunset. And you're like, people.
Well, no, don't you shoot both of them and then you become the. Oh no, you could if you shoot the. So basically, the way that the ending's meant to work is that you shoot the bad Russian, and then the nerd Russian goes, "I'll have to send you back in time to shoot yourself," and that's like what the actual ending's meant to be.
Yeah.
Even though it's like a weird ending because everyone's speaking Russian now. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
Then there's the ending where if you shoot the nice Russian scientist, the bad guy goes, you can be my son now. And you go on to like rule the world with him. Or you can shoot both. And the guy just goes, I'm done.
Yeah, your dude can just shoot both and fucking bounce. He's like, I am done dealing with this bullshit. You shoot both, you move on, and it's just like the ending is just like the world is fighting each other, and the dude, if he ever existed, is somewhere, and your character just is like goes off on an island and is like, I got. It was like this man with the power of a god, and I'm like, yeah.
But he's on an island drinking out of a coconut. And
He's just having some Mai Tais, stuck on the beach. He's like, yeah, I could be altering time and saving lives right now, but instead I'm gonna down this coconut.
Instead,
drink,
I'm drowning my trauma from aging people into skeletons with
wishing I could have turned them into babies.
Wishing I could have turned them into babies instead.
Yeah.
That's his real regret is the babyality.
God. It was funny though, like the way that it ends does kind of set things up of like, oh, US versus Russia. Oh, maybe they could do a sequel where it's like on a bigger scale, but like we never got a sequel to Singularity.
No.
I don't think it's ever happening.
Nah.
If this game came out 3
never.
years later and actually had a budget, there could have been that DLC with Catherine where she's in the past, like in the 50s.
Oh, yeah.
And she's kind of trying to keep things going and set things up for the player. That could have been cool. Like, I feel like there's a version of this game where that could have happened, but, you know, here we are. Stuck in the Call of Duty
They could have done Burial
lines.
at Sea where they could have got a bit more clever with it.
Exactly.
There's a bit where I like where it's the Russian scientist guy that you meet in the 50s is like, okay, go through this time portal and I will meet you in 3, 2, and you go through and then he's on a television and it just continues what he's saying. It's like, that's, again, the game has a lot of like really cute touches in it. Like it is like, for all what I imagine they ripped out of it, I don't know whether it was because what was left over was solid enough or whether it was that in those 10 months they just crunched to polish it all up. But it's a great game. Like, it's not...
Yeah.
I mean, again, So what was this game going up against? What would, if you had money, what else could you have spent it on instead of Singularity in 2010? So we got BioShock 2, which... I mean, BioShock 2 is a good game. It's I like it more than the first. I certainly like it more than Infinite. Developed by the guys who go on to do the Bureau, and the multiplayer was done by Digital Extremes.
And the Bureau is one of your favorite games.
Bureau's pretty underrated as well.
Bureau, yeah, we'll probably do the Bureau one
talk
day
about the Bureau at some point.
I'd be happy to keep talking about the Bureau for the rest of my life. Bad Company 2. Bad Company 2, fantastic game. Pretty much was the game that figured out, okay, how do we make Battlefield work on a console? Well, we just made the map smaller and make them all about... Like, it was the first Frostbite engine game, so it was all about, like, destruction and, like, hey, I can shoot a hole in a wall and use it as cover. Really great game. Solid stuff.
Yeah.
Halo Reach. I mean, what needs to be said about that? It was the last Bungie Halo game. It was really solid game. I replayed it recently. Not as brilliant as I remembered, but again, very Half-Life 2 in respects of like every level is basically it's like Halo's greatest hits. Like they redo like the sniping level from Halo 1. They have like some decent vehicle section stuff in it, but then add a couple of new like the space dogfighting stuff. Really
Reach
fun.
had and Reach also had a very strong ending. if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
It has a real gut.
Oh yeah, the ending of Reach.
It has a real
really
gut
good.
punch of an ending.
And it's funny because it's kind of like you see it coming a million miles away because it's like, well, my guy doesn't exist in the future.
So
like,
what's going to happen here? Yeah.
And yeah, they just do that horrible gut punch ending. And then kind of leave it on a nice note of maybe we'll start making Spartans again. Wouldn't that be nice? We can bring them back. Alien versus Predator, which is funny because Heretic and Heretic comes out the same year as Alien versus Predator on the Jaguar, one of the first proper console FPS games. And funnily enough, Aliens versus Predator, also made by Rebellion. 30 odd years later, they're still making Alien versus Predator games. Like,
Wow.
Interesting prestige for that. The Medal of Honor reboot comes out in 2010, a game that we'll probably cover at some point because, oh boy, that is a that is a game. That is a game that exists. That is a game that purely exists because, hey, Call of Duty is really popular, as is Modern Warfare. We could bring Medal of Honor back, I suppose.
Oh, God, I
You
remember.
also get Mac.
I remember Medal of Honor.
Sorry, go
playing
ahead.
Medal of Honor the first time. It was good back in the day. In 2000, whenever I first played it.
Oh yeah, the original Medal of Honor is fantastic. Well, I mean, the original Medal of Honor is obviously Spielberg's working on it, but that's the team that then goes on to do Infinity Ward
Sure.
at Activision.
Yeah.
You're talking about the remake in 2012 or whatever?
Yeah, 2010.
Yeah. 2010. Yeah. Okay.
It was a decent developer. I think they were called like Danger Close, who I think were a lot of ex guys who had worked on the original Medal of Honors as well, but no Spielberg touch on that one. He was too busy working on Boom Blocks at that point. Boom Blocks.
Classic.
We also got Mag, which is that game on the PS3, which had 256 players.
Oh,
in
yeah.
an FPS. Pretty impressive. Call of Duty Black Ops, which, I mean, that's the game that Raven builds the DLC for, and it basically becomes, hey, great job, guys. This is what you're going to be doing for the next 15-odd years. Enjoy.
That's got a sting, eh? To make DLC for a game and have that do better than the actual game you made.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Yeah.
And then finally, the GoldenEye 007 Wii reboot, which was done by Eurocom, which again, maybe we might cover that on the podcast, even though James Bond is like one of the biggest licenses in the world, but interesting that they decided, hey, let's remake GoldenEye 14 years after the fact, you know? Do it on the Wii, you know, lean into the fact that it hasn't really got much of an FPS base apart from like a couple of like known games on that. And
Why not?
do something.
Yeah.
So, as I've kind of been teasing, Singularity didn't do super well, so let's do just kind of nice round things out. Let's do a little quiz. Jesse versus Kevin. We're gonna
Not the box office game.
We're doing, folks, if you're a fan of the more well-known podcast Flying Check with Griffin and David, you may have seen something like this before. Here's the box office game, but obviously there is no box office for games, but there is VG Charts, which since 2004 has been keeping a listing of the most popular games games by sales in the US week by week. So this came out, basically you qualified for the list on July 3rd. It debuted at a nice round number 26.
Jesus.
But
Ouch. Debuted at 26.
But I'm going to ask you guys, what were the top 5 games to come out? What were the top 5 games of that week?
All right.
Now, this is going to be kind of an easy one because the first three on the chart are the same game for different systems. So whoever gets this.
Oh, okay. All right. So we'll start with number 5.
I will give some clues though for 1, 2, and 3.
Please, yeah.
A film franchise which was incredibly popular around this time, but will soon be ending towards the middle of the 2010s.
Soon be.
If you want to ask
Harry
some
Potter?
21 style questions, I can give yes or no's on that.
Oh, sure, yeah. Okay.
Jesse, did you guess Harry Potter?
Yeah, Harry Potter, no?
It is a Harry Potter game.
Oh, okay. Oh, which one was 2010?
It's part of a still very long running franchise of games which you can kind of almost slot movie franchises into them.
Lego Harry Potter? Is that it? Is that it?
It is Lego Harry Potter years 1 through 4.
Well
now,
done.
for bonus points,
Okay.
tell me the 3 platforms from 1, 2, and 3. What do you think the number 1 platform was for Lego Harry Potter years 1 through 4?
Number 1?
Yeah.
It's got to be Wii, right?
Bingo.
Fuck.
It is the Wii. What is the second biggest platform for this?
I'm going to say this 360.
Yeah.
It's not the 360. The 360 is third place. So
what?
So what
DS?
is more? The DS. That's number 2.
Wow.
So it sold most on the Wii, then the DS, and then the Xbox 360. Now, the next 2
wild.
games are very similar to one another. One of them, it's so number 4. It's a sequel to one of the most popular games of all time.
Came out in 20... Oh!
Think of it.
BioShock 2.
It's not BioShock 2.
Okay.
Wasn't that weak, right?
Think more...
Yeah.
Yeah, not quite. Think more mass appeal than BioShock.
More mass appeal.
More mass appeal.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah, is it Mass Effect too?
is not Mass Effect 2.
Oh, okay.
The mass was not a hint.
Yeah, unfortunately. He kept driving it. It's like, oh, it's got to be it.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Wide appeal.
One of the most popular games
of all time.
Damn. Super Mario Bros. 2 came out in 2010?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
wild.
Did you know
Can
that
you
it was
believe it?
originally based on a Japanese game called Yumi Kojo Doki Doki?
Fuck off. I'm going to throw you in the garbage bin.
Did you know Super Mario Brothers
you are
2?
on the right track with Nintendo, though.
Oh, okay.
2010.
2010, most popular game. Nintendo.
Sequel. Metroid 2? No, that's not popular at all.
Obviously, the Wii is burning up because Lego Harry Potter's number 1.
Sure. Oh, okay. Is it
Is it Galaxy 2?
No, but Galaxy 2 is in the top 10.
is it Wii Fit
okay.
2?
No, but you're on the right track.
He's on the right track.
He's on the
What?
right track.
Just Dance 2019.
Wii
I don't know,
Sports
2010. No.
Is that it?
But
Resort?
But what's it actually called?
What was Wii Sports 2 called?
What is the sequel to Wii Sports called?
Resort, right?
Wii Sports Resort. That is number 4.
We'll give that to Kev. Kev can have it.
Kev can
you
have
you
that.
did all the
And then-
work.
And then number 5 is the prequel,
Wii Sport?
Wii Sports.
Wii Sports.
What?
So
Despite the fact that it was a pack-in game for the Wii,
Yeah.
still
number 5.
That-
in
Well, I guess because the
That
Wii was
Wii-
still selling so high
Yeah.
that they counted that
think-
as its
I
own
think
thing, right? That's
2010.
crazy.
yeah, the late aughts, early
after
2010s
2008.
is just all the numbers are skewed by the Wii. Like the Wii just fucks
Yeah,
all
the-
of these
the-
numbers up.
The Wii is a powerhouse at this point. They should have put Singularity out on the Wii.
They honestly
They
they
should've.
should have. They had that Conduit game, that like first person shooter, Conduit 1. That was all right.
Yeah. They had
This could have worked
GoldenEye,
the same
which
kind of way.
GoldenEye did very well on the Wii as well.
Yeah,
funnily
that too.
enough.
Yeah.
So, so that's kind of brings us to the end of the story of Raven Software. So where did they go from there? Well, as we've kind of alluded to, the back-to-back with Wolfenstein 09 and Singularity they didn't close the company down, but basically Activision said, well, you got FPS credentials, but we need you on a more surefire thing. And at this point, Modern Warfare 1 and Modern Warfare 2 were like the biggest games in the world at this point. So it was kind of like, we need more hands on deck. And at this point, you have like Infinity Ward working on it, Treyarch's working on Call of Duty. Eventually, we'll have Sledgehammer working on it as well. But
Yeah.
Raven come in, they kind of look more on the multiplayer side of stuff, which makes sense. They do. We haven't quite touched on the multiplayer in Singularity. Granted, I didn't play it for this, but I did play it back in the day. Relatively interesting. Very similar to the Dead Space 2 multiplayer, where you have humans on one side with guns, and then on the other you have you can play as the zombie guys, and you get like special
that's cool.
abilities. Relatively cool, but basically they were like, We didn't originally plan to have multiplayer, but we had to put it in because Call of Duty. And it has like the Call of Duty style progression system as well, which, hey, cool that they did that, but I mean, why go for is that Call of Duty when Call of Duty already exists?
Yeah.
You know? So they worked on Black Ops 1 and Modern Warfare 3 with Treyarch and Infinity Ward respectively. They developed Blops 2 in tandem with Treyarch. They were kind of like half and half on that. And then the game that they took more of a lead on was pretty much all the way down the line. Black Ops Cold War, starring Ronnie Reagan, which came out a couple of years ago.
Friend.
But they have gone on for like bigger success in regards to they have pretty much the lead devs on Warzone, which makes sense. Call of Duty, biggest game in the world, Battle Royale, the biggest genre in the world. Yeah, let's combine these two things together. Let's see if that makes a lot of money. Oh, it does.
Yeah, and
great.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, who
tons
saw
of
that
money.
one coming, huh? So they've been,
I can't believe it.
They will probably be working on that for the next few years. But
Microsoft's buying them.
That's very
Potentially,
true.
maybe they're getting Activision, right? I think it'd be cool. Phil Spencer is a capitalist and a billionaire or whatever, right? Or not a billionaire, but he has a lot of money. So you can't trust him. But he does have that thing going on where he kind of gives a shit about video games. Like
he
a lot,
likes games.
it seems like. So maybe he'll look at this and go, you know what? These guys are way too good to just be doing, Warzone until the company
they die.
implodes. Let them do Singularity 2. Put it on Game Pass. Give us that baby gun, Phil.
gun.
Do it.
Hashtag
us
baby
a
guns for Phil.
Yes.
Can you imagine E3 next year and he comes out on stage and he goes...
Phil Spencer walks out with the TMD.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, imagine he comes on stage and he just opens the jacket and it's Soldier of Fortune 3. I would be...
See, that would be amazing.
He's just like, we're bringing it back. John Mullins, who's now like in his 90s, they just wheel him out
John
on stage.
Mullins still alive?
John Mullins, I
They're just gonna
believe,
weekend
is
at Burns
still
Home, so it's
alive.
fine.
I mean, a guy like that, it would take a lot to kill John Mullins.
I mean, this is true.
He had an adventure. He stopped. He managed to find 4 nuclear warheads. Okay, he did pretty good. For
Allegedly.
in regards to kind of Raven's, like the people who work there, it's quite hard to talk about in regards to Singularity because this was a game that was made by. Not only was it made by hundreds of people, but they changed, the big development team halfway through anyways. So when you even look at the credits, nobody's like listed by what their job is. It's just like this game was made by all of these people, which I think is kind of nice because it shows that, everybody is weighted equally, but it makes it very difficult to be like, oh, you could see the level design of this guy in it and, stuff like that, which
No, it's nice to see that stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's like old games very much have that where you have your John Romero's and your a lot of auteurs came out of it versus now where, well, I guess maybe apart from like Cory Balrog, who's sort of like he's like or like Neil Druckmann, who have become like known names in the games industry recently. Yeah, it's difficult to kind of, especially with Raven stuff, it's difficult to kind of like point out and say, hey, this is who works.
This person was a Raven game developer, level designer or something. Yeah. Although I bet if you're looking for a job and your name is on that list of just, positionless credits, everyone could go to an interview and be like, I was the game director on Singularity. How would they know?
How would you know? All the good bits in Singularity, that was me. Everything else
that was my role. I was the good bits maker on Singularity.
Of the Raffel brothers, Brian is still the CEO of Raven and has been for the past 32 years, which is...
Wow.
In regards to games industry stuff, that is quite amazing. People don't really last
hyper veteran.
Don't last that long in the games industry, so...
No.
And as we kind of come to the end of the Raven series, I guess, Kevin, we gotta break them down.
We got some rankings to do.
We gotta rank our Raven FPS games. Do you want me to go first? Because I've actually written them. Do you want to go first? I don't mind. Jesse, you can weigh in on this as well if you want to just go like, I like this game more than that game. I think this might be
the only one I've played. So this and X-Men Legends.
Number one
for you,
yeah. You got it.
I want to
followed by X-Men Legends.
So yes. James, knowing your lists already, I want to say that a lot of my list is probably going to be similar, at least in the bottom half. Okay. So bringing up the rear is going to be Quake 4. Honestly, Quake 4 and Soldier of Fortune 2 you could probably tie them as at the bottom.
They're bad games.
Then you got your Star Trek Voyager. The one thing I would say I disagree with on your list is Hexen 2 is I really liked Hexen 2. I'm gonna say after Star Trek Voyager, I'm gonna say moving up the list, Heretic. Actually, I'm gonna say Soldier of Fortune, Heretic, Hexen 2, and then Outcast Academy, and I'm gonna flop Wolfenstein and Singularity.
So Singularity is your number one.
I think Singularity has enough of there's like a little bit of a weird sheen and polish that I appreciate to Singularity that doesn't feel there in Wolfenstein necessarily. And I want to say it's because Singularity has and if you want to hear my thoughts on it, go back and listen to our episode on Wolfenstein 09 with Jacob Geller. But Singularity has like a uniformity in its presentation and UI and all that stuff. In terms of like gameplay, they're like neck and neck for me in gameplay. And then Singularity has like a polish in terms of a singular.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Comedy.
There it is.
Hey, we got a soundboard, folks.
Professional over here.
Singularity has like a singular vision in terms of its UI and interface that is not necessarily there in Wolf 09.
That's absolutely
so.
Fair. Just for
the graphic design UX stuff for some reason puts it over the top for me.
That's fair enough. So for me, it's just kind of as I said, Quake 4. Considering the name, I mean that's why it's lower. Like Soldier of Fortune 2. No one was. I mean, Soldier of Fortune is a game that's kind of forgotten about, anyways. And if you didn't remember it, you probably didn't even know it had a sequel. This is Quake 4, a sequel to the Quake friend. Like Quake 1 is this game that like blows everything wide open in regards to 3D FPS games. Second one's okay, but then the third one, like Arena Shooters, comes out of it. Like they figured out how to do that. So you make it a sequel to Quake, it has to be like it already has to be at a high bar, but it's just shit. It is so
Quake
bad.
4 is the Doom 3 of Quake.
Yeah, but it makes Doom 3 look like Doom 2016. It is shocking.
Wow.
Followed by Soldier of Fortune 2, which I just didn't get into. Soldier of Fortune 1, I kind of warmed up to it a little bit, even though it is like right-wing crank propaganda. It's fun right-wing crank propaganda. Versus Soldier of Fortune 2, which is like, hey, Rainbow Six is really popular. Let's make our game slower and more boring. And it's not very good. Star Trek Voyager Elite Force. I'm not a massive Star Trek guy to begin with, and they try and recreate a lot of like the slowness of an episode where you're not shooting stuff all the time. The intro level, it's fun, but very kind of confusing. Didn't have a very good console ports or whatever. Hexen 2, I understand why you like it.
Hexen, it's very simmy, you know?
Yeah, but it's also very Quake.
Yeah.
And I think if I was born around the time that Quake had come out, I would have maybe liked it a little bit more. But it kind of felt like a little bit like I had to get a walkthrough for some points because I just kind of felt like, am I even going in the right direction?
Oh yeah, true. It is very it's very obscure.
This is Heretic and Hexen, where because they are so simple, they're a lot more straightforward. Heretic then coming out of the rear again is the first game that we covered. It's simple. I think it's really cute. The fact that it is Doom D&D is just it's adorable, but it's a game of its time. Followed by Soldier of Fortune, which, right-wing crank propaganda, but it has its moments, and it is really funny to think that John Mullins is a real guy that consulted on the game and was like, oh yeah, I stopped 4 nukes. Yeah, I shot ninjas in Japan with a laser rifle. Yeah, that all happened. Yeah, I did that.
This is real.
Followed by Hexen, which, way more ambitious than Heretic. The fact that they're able to make like a game with a Super Mario 64 style hub in the Doom engine, really impressive. Looks really great, still plays really great, has a decent N64 port. And then Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy. I mean, what can you say about them? They're like two of the best Star Wars games ever made.
Yeah.
Still
Classics.
Outcast kind of has a lot of wonky level design, but Academy holds up super well. Then Singularity and then Wolf09. And the only reason Wolf09 is higher is that, yeah, it's not as polished, but it's got an open world. It has Bioshock powers. It has all these weird ideas in the mix.
And don't get me wrong, Wolfenstein is like one of my favorite series of all time. So it's like it's definitely up there for me. I think it was just like if the I'd say if the compass just looked a little bit more like it belonged in a Wolfenstein game and
not like Call of Duty.
And not like Call of Duty, I think it would have made a big difference.
Absolutely.
Oh, gosh.
And with that, we've come to the end of the Raven rankings, and I suppose we've also come to the end of our That's So Raven mini-series. So, once again, Jesse, it's been wonderful having you here to gab about Singularity.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah.
Would you, folks at home, where can they find you? Where can they find your stuff, or just you in general?
You can find me at my home. Don't bother me if you know where that is. But on Twitter, you can find me, twitter.com/Guarascia or at Guarascia, Guaras like Sam, CIA. Follow me on there. See all the fun stuff that I'm doing, games I'm playing. I don't know. I don't tweet as much as I used to. You're welcome. So I'm worth following for that reason.
And joining me as co-host throughout this entire journey has been Kevin from PixelLit. So, Kevin, go ahead. What you got to what if there was a podcast about books that maybe you would want to point people towards? What would it be?
Listen, if there's a podcast about books based on video games, God, you should really avoid that. No, that's my podcast. That's PixelLit. That is the PixelLit podcast. We talk about books based on video games and otherwise video game novelization and media tie-ins and things like that. And we've covered a whole bunch of different, from the olds, the original video game novelization, which was written by Alan Dean Foster, Shadowkeep, to up to today. I'd say the newest one we've covered is going to be Halo, the Rubicon Protocol, or depending on when this episode comes out, we will have covered the Dark Souls novel that's coming out. I don't know if people are aware that there is a Dark Souls novel being written by Michael Stackpole. So yeah, we cover old to new and everything in between. So PixelLit Pod on Twitter, PixelLit Pod on Instagram, pixelitpod.com for our Discord and Steam Curator page.
Nice. I've been James. You can find me on Twitter at HotCyder, HOTCYDER. If you want to support the podcast, you can do the same over at Patreon at HotCyder as well. You may want to do that in case perhaps you want us to come back to this Raven mini-series to maybe talk about some of the games that we didn't, such as Soldier of Fortune 2 and Cyclones and stuff like that.
All the Call of
Listen,
Duties.
if you want us to talk about Soldier of Fortune 2, you're gonna have to see some dinero, I'm afraid. But other than that, though, we'll have some extra content as well to go along with it. Maybe talk about some newer games. Hey, maybe we might talk about Call of Duty Warzone.
Ooh.
That's Raven's latest game. Unfortunately, it's too good for the main feed. So
A little too good for the main feed.
that's about that. Far too good for the main feed. So, until the next episode, folks, keep blasting.
Ha!